What if I told you that the simple act of offering your jacket to a stranger could completely transform your life? Imagine standing at a bus stop on the coldest night of the year. Your fingers are numb, your breath hangs in the air like little clouds, and your worn-out jacket barely keeps the bitter wind at bay. Across from you stands someone shivering even more than you are. Would you give them your only jacket? Most of us would hesitate. After all, we have our own problems, right? We're already struggling. We can barely help ourselves, let alone someone else. Have you ever hesitated to help someone because you felt you had nothing valuable to offer? Maybe you thought, I'm just getting by. What difference could I possibly make? That's exactly where Marcus found himself, standing at that freezing bus stop, with barely enough to get by. Once a brilliant software developer with a corner office, a comfortable savings account, and a future as bright as the screens he coded on, Marcus had lost everything. A series of tragedies left him scraping together enough to afford a tiny room above a noisy diner, working odd jobs just to keep the lights on. Yet in that moment of decision, jacket or no jacket, Marcus chose kindness. He didn't know that the shivering woman at the bus stop was Elena, the CEO of one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country. He didn't know that his simple gesture would ripple through both their lives in ways neither could predict. What happens when kindness meets opportunity? Today's story reveals how a single moment of compassion created a wave that changed everything. It's not just about a jacket or a chance meeting. It's about how the choices we make when no one's watching can sometimes be witnessed by exactly the right person at exactly the right time. Before we get into this remarkable story, I want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a moment when a stranger's kindness shifted the course of your day, your week, or maybe even your life? Or have you offered help to someone without realizing the impact it might have had? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might inspire someone else to choose kindness today. Now, let's go back to that frigid bus stop where Marcus's act of compassion was about to change his life forever. Marcus Reeves once wrote code that millions of people used every day. At 32, he had been the lead developer for one of the most popular messaging apps in the country. His hands, now rough from odd jobs and constant work, used to fly across keyboards, creating digital worlds that connected people across continents. 6 years ago, his name appeared in tech magazines. The next big thing, they called him. His office overlooked the city skyline, and his schedule filled with meetings about future innovations. At night, he returned to a modern apartment where his wife, Anna, worked on her doctoral dissertation in psychology. They talked about changing the world, he through technology, she through understanding the human mind. Then came the accident. A rainy night, a truck driver who fell asleep at the wheel, and suddenly Marcus's world collapsed. Anna didn't survive. The grief consumed him. Days blurred into weeks. The code that once flowed from his fingers now seemed like a foreign language. His focus shattered. Deadlines passed unmet. Projects failed. After 3 months of declining performance, his company, once his second home, let him go. "Take some time," they said. "Come back when you're ready." But Marcus couldn't find his way back. Without health insurance, the medical bills from Anna's final days quickly drained their savings. The apartment went next, then the car, then his professional reputation. Now, at 38, Marcus lives in a single room above Lou's diner, where he sometimes washes dishes in exchange for meals. His coding skills, once sharp and valuable, have fallen behind the rapidly evolving tech world. Each morning, he wakes before dawn to deliver newspapers, then spends afternoons doing maintenance work for nearby apartment buildings. At night, He tries to relearn coding through free online courses at the public library. But the gap between where he was and where the industry has gone feels impossibly wide. Yet something in Marcus refuses to break. Every morning, he still makes his bed with military precision. His few possessions remain organized and well kept. The worn jacket, the only reminder of his former life, gets brushed clean each night. The diner owner, Lou, often tells new staff, "Watch how Marcus treats people." Because despite everything, Marcus remembers names. He asks about the regular customers' families. He helps elderly neighbors carry groceries without being asked. When a homeless teen started hanging around the diner's back door, Marcus quietly paid for a meal each week from his meager earnings. "You give from what you have, not from what you don't," he tells people who question his generosity. And everyone has something to give. What looks like hardship to others feels like practice to Marcus. Practice in finding moments of grace in a world that hadn't been particularly graceful to him. Each small kindness he offers serves as a tiny rebellion against bitterness, a quiet reminder that while life had taken almost everything from him, it couldn't take his choice to remain human. November brought the kind of cold that cuts through clothing and settles in your bones. The weatherman called it record-breaking, the earliest cold snap in 30 years. For most people, it meant cranking up the heat and adding an extra blanket. For Marcus, it meant choosing between heating his room or eating dinner. That evening, Marcus hunched at the bus stop, his hands tucked under his armpits. The metal bench had absorbed the frigid air, making it almost painful to sit on. Wind whistled through the cracks in the shelter's plastic panels, carrying the smell of coming snow and car exhaust. The streetlights cast yellow pools on the wet sidewalk, their glow reflecting off patches of ice forming in the gutters. He checked his watch. 8:42 p.m. The last bus of the night would arrive in 13 minutes. If it was on time. If it came at all. Marcus wasn't alone at the stop. Across from him, a woman in a thin beige coat paced back and forth, her heels clicking quickly against the concrete. Her hair, tied back in a neat ponytail, whipped around in the wind. She wore a light scarf that kept blowing off her neck, and she clutched a sleek leather bag against her chest like a shield. She checked her phone, then looked up at the darkening sky with obvious concern. When she shivered, a full-body tremor she couldn't hide, Marcus noticed she was wearing what looked like an expensive but completely weather-inappropriate outfit. The kind of clothing meant for rushing from a heated car into a heated building, not waiting at exposed bus stops. Another gust hit the shelter, this one carrying the first few snowflakes. The woman's teeth chattered audibly now. Marcus looked down at his jacket. It wasn't much, worn at the elbows and patched at one shoulder, but it was lined with flannel and had seen him through 3 winters. He needed it. The walk from the bus to his room would take 15 minutes, and without it, he'd be risking frostbite. But the woman was clearly freezing. Marcus stood, wincing as his stiff knees protested. He unzipped his jacket and walked over to her. "Excuse me," he said, his voice rough from disuse. "Would you like to borrow my jacket until the bus comes?" The woman startled, her eyes wide with surprise, then suspicion, then confusion. No, I couldn't," she said, her voice cultured and precise despite the cold. "You need it." Marcus smiled gently. "I've got more layers on than you do, and you're shaking pretty badly." She hesitated, looking at him more carefully now. "Are you sure?" Instead of answering, Marcus slipped off his jacket and held it out. After another moment of hesitation, she accepted it, wrapping it around her shoulders with visible relief. "Thank you," she said. "I'm Elena. I don't usually take the bus, but my car wouldn't start and the rideshare app crashed. and now I'm stuck here like it's the universe's joke." "Marcus," he replied, "and sometimes the universe does have a strange sense of humor." They sat together on the bench, a careful distance between them. Marcus asked where she was headed, and Elena mentioned a hotel downtown hosting a conference. "Tech industry," she explained vaguely. "Long hours, but good work." Marcus nodded, not mentioning his past. "Good work matters." The conversation flowed easily after that, about the city, the cold snap, a new restaurant that had opened nearby. Nothing personal, nothing deep, yet somehow comfortable. When the bus finally arrived, its headlights cutting through the now steady snowfall, Elena stood. "Your jacket," she said, starting to remove it. "Keep it until you get where you're going," Marcus insisted. "You can't walk into your conference half frozen." "But how will I return it?" Marcus shrugged. "Consider it a gift from the universe with its strange sense of humor." Elena hesitated, then quickly wrote something on a business card and pressed it into his hand. "Thank you, Marcus," she said, and boarded the bus. As it pulled away, Marcus pocketed the card without looking at it and turned toward home, snow collecting on his sweater and the long walk ahead. The business card Marcus had pocketed without a glance bore only 3 words beneath Elena's name: CEO, Nexus Technologies. Elena Mercer wasn't just in the tech industry. She ran one of the fastest-growing companies in Silicon Valley. At 36, she controlled a workforce of over 2,000 employees and managed assets worth billions. Her face had appeared on magazine covers celebrating women in technology. Her name popped up on lists of the most influential people under 40. But that night, sitting in her hotel suite, Elena couldn't stop thinking about the man who had given her his only jacket. She wrapped herself in the hotel bathrobe, staring at the jacket now hanging on her closet door. The worn fabric told a story so different from the sleek design of her normal life. When was the last time anyone had offered her something without wanting something in return? Her phone buzzed with notifications: 47 emails, 18 texts, 5 missed calls. The acquisition deal she'd been working on for months was entering its final phase. Her team needed decisions, approvals, signatures. The board expected updates. Everything moved at a relentless pace. Yet all she could think about was Marcus's eyes, kind, without a hint of resentment despite his obvious struggles. Elena had built Nexus Technologies from a startup to an empire by identifying and leveraging patterns. She recognized talent, spotted market shifts, predicted competitor moves. Her success came from seeing what others missed. But somewhere along the way, she'd stopped seeing people. Her assistant knocked, entering with tomorrow's schedule and a stack of contracts requiring immediate attention. Elena nodded, signed where indicated, approved the schedule changes. "Cancel my dinner tomorrow," she said suddenly, "and find out something for me." The next morning, while her executive team prepared for the acquisition meeting, Elena sat alone reviewing information her assistant had gathered. The business card Marcus had given her listed only his name and a phone number that no longer worked. But her resources went far beyond ordinary searches. Within hours, she had a file: Marcus Reeves, former senior developer at Coastline Software, award-winning work, personal tragedy, financial collapse, current address, a room above Lou's Diner. The Marcus who had given her his jacket had once been exactly the kind of person she would have hired. Brilliant, creative, dedicated. Now he was invisible to the corporate world she inhabited. That night, his kindness had been a small crack in her carefully constructed reality. Through that crack, light now poured in, illuminating questions she'd avoided for years. What was the point of all this success if it disconnected her from basic human goodness? What kind of company was she building, if it couldn't recognize the value of someone like Marcus. Elena made her decision. She would find him again. Before we continue this story, I want to hear from you. Has a stranger's unexpected kindness ever shifted your perspective or changed how you view the world? Share your experience in the comments below. Sometimes the smallest acts make the biggest difference in how we see ourselves and others. 3 days after the bus stop encounter, a crisp cream envelope appeared under Marcus's door. No postmark, no courier sticker, just his name written in elegant blue ink. Inside, a single card read, "Marcus, your kindness that cold night meant more than you know. I'd like to discuss an opportunity that might interest you. Car service will arrive tomorrow at 7 p.m. if you accept. Elena." A phone number followed, along with the name of a restaurant Marcus recognized from newspaper articles about celebrities and business deals. Marcus read the note 3 times, then checked the envelope again. Nothing else. No explanation. No clue about what opportunity could possibly connect him to someone who dined at one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city. He reached for his phone to call the number, then stopped. His hand moved to the trash can, then stopped again. Curiosity battled with caution. Was this real? A joke? Some elaborate scam? He remembered the woman at the bus stop, composed despite the cold, her speech precise, her manner confident. The business card she'd given him was still in the pocket of his other pants. He hadn't bothered to look at it. All day, the invitation pulled at his thoughts. During his newspaper route, while fixing a broken faucet, as he helped Lou unpack food deliveries. What could someone like her possibly want with someone like him? By evening, curiosity won. When a black car with tinted windows pulled up outside the diner at exactly 7 p.m., Marcus stepped forward wearing his cleanest shirt and only tie. The restaurant gleamed with subtle wealth. Soft lighting reflected off copper fixtures, white tablecloths draped over dark wood tables, waitstaff moving with practiced efficiency. Marcus felt every eye note his worn shoes and outdated watch as the host led him through the dining room. In a private corner sat Elena, not the shivering woman from the bus stop, but a commanding presence in a tailored navy suit. Her hair fell in perfect waves, and a delicate gold necklace caught the light when she moved. Recognition flickered in her eyes, followed by a genuine smile that transformed her professional mask. "You came," she said, rising to greet him. "Your invitation was unexpected," Marcus replied, acutely aware of the contrast between them. They sat, and a waiter appeared with water and menus. Marcus noticed how staff responded to Elena, not with ordinary courtesy, but with the deference reserved for power. "Who are you?" he asked directly once they were alone. "Elena Mercer, CEO of Nexus Technologies," she answered, watching his reaction carefully. Marcus felt a jolt of recognition. Nexus Technologies, the company that had revolutionized cloud security systems. Even in his disconnected state, he knew that name. "Why am I here?" he asked. "I did some research on you, Marcus Reeves. Your work at Coastline was brilliant. Their messaging architecture still uses your protocols." Marcus stiffened. "That was another life." "I know what happened. I'm sorry about your wife." "Thank you," he said simply, waiting for her to continue. Elena leaned forward. "Nexus is growing faster than our culture can keep up. We're becoming exactly what I never wanted. Efficient but cold. Productive but heartless." She paused. "When you gave me your jacket that night, it was the first genuinely selfless act I'd experienced in years." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Anyone would have done the same. "But they didn't. You did." Elena placed a folder on the table. "I want to offer you a position at Nexus Technologies as our empathy consultant." "Empathy consultant?" Marcus repeated, confused. You would help shape how we interact with customers, train our leadership in compassionate management, and guide our team-building initiatives. She slid the folder toward him. Your technical background combined with your life experience gives you a perspective we desperately need. Marcus stared at the folder, then back at Elena, searching for any sign this was charity or a cruel joke. This is real, she said, reading his thoughts, with a real salary, benefits, and genuine responsibility. Marcus's hand hovered over the folder, his world tilting on its axis. Marcus's first day at Nexus Technologies felt like stepping onto an alien planet. Glass walls stretched from floor to ceiling. Employees hurried through corridors, eyes fixed on tablets and phones. The cafeteria offered 7 types of milk alternatives, but lacked the warmth of Lou's coffee. His new title, empathy consultant, earned him curious glances from staff who wore expressions of polite confusion. His office, with its minimalist furniture and panoramic city view, seemed designed for someone else entirely. I don't belong here, he told Elena during their first weekly meeting. That's exactly why you do, she replied. 3 weeks in, Marcus observed his first executive meeting. 12 department heads discussed a product delay, their language clinical and detached. How will this affect customers? Marcus asked when invited to speak. The room fell silent. No one had mentioned customers yet. Only deadlines, metrics, and market positioning. Real people rely on your security software to protect their personal information, Marcus continued. What will you tell the small business owner who planned their launch around your release date? His question shifted the conversation entirely. By meeting's end, they had developed a communication plan that acknowledged customer impact and offered meaningful solutions. This became Marcus's method, asking simple questions that connected abstract decisions to human consequences. In project reviews, he requested photos of the actual users. During product testing, he brought in people with varying tech comfort levels, rather than just efficiency experts. 4 months after joining Nexus, Marcus suggested Connection Fridays, a 2-hour window when employees from different departments shared lunch and conversation without work talk allowed. Participation was voluntary. The first week, 12 people attended. By the 3rd month, they needed 3 conference rooms to accommodate everyone. A customer service representative approached Marcus after one such lunch. I used to hate getting assigned difficult customers, she admitted. But last week, when a man called yelling about data migration, I remembered what you said about anger often masking fear. I asked what he was worried about losing. He broke down, explained he had irreplaceable photos of his late wife. We spent an hour recovering everything. He sent flowers to the office yesterday. Such stories multiplied. The company newsletter created a column called Human Moments, featuring similar experiences. Employee retention improved. Customer satisfaction scores rose 15 percentage points in 6 months. Through it all, Marcus and Elena's professional relationship deepened. Their weekly meetings extended from 30 minutes to 2 hours, often continuing through dinner. She shared the pressures of leadership. He offered perspective without judgment. They laughed more freely together than with anyone else. One evening, walking from a late meeting to the parking garage, Elena asked, "Do you remember what you said that night at the bus stop? About the universe having a strange sense of humor?" Marcus nodded. "I've been thinking about that," she said. "How losing everything led you here. How my car breaking down led me to you." Their hands brushed accidentally as they walked, neither acknowledging the contact nor pulling away. In the office, rumors circulated about the CEO and the unusual consultant who'd changed the company's heartbeat. But what was building between them felt too genuine to label or rush. Has empathy changed your workplace or personal relationships? Tell us in the comments about a time when understanding someone else's perspective made all the difference. How did it change the outcome? What did you learn from the experience? 9 months into Marcus's tenure at Nexus, the company celebrated winning a humanitarian award for their new non-profit initiative, a program Marcus had helped develop that provided security software to organizations protecting vulnerable populations. At the celebration, Elena found Marcus alone on the rooftop terrace. "Hiding from your success?" she asked, joining him at the railing. "Just catching my breath," he replied. "A year ago, I was washing dishes at Lou's." Elena's hand covered his on the railing. "You've changed this company, Marcus." "We changed it together," he corrected. That night marked a shift. Their weekly dinners moved from the office to quiet restaurants. Work discussions gave way to personal histories. Marcus spoke about Anna for the first time in years. Not just her loss, but who she'd been, her laugh, her passion for helping others. Elena shared her own hidden struggles, the loneliness of leadership, the family who measured love in achievements, the relationships that failed because work always came first. "I was building something impressive but hollow," she admitted during a walk through a city park. "I didn't realize how empty it felt until you showed me what was missing." Marcus stopped walking. "What was missing?" "Heart," she said simply. "The courage to value people over profits." Their first kiss came naturally, neither planned nor expected, a quiet moment after Elena helped Marcus move into a new apartment. Nothing grand, just a gentle acknowledgement of what had been building between them. Their relationship progressed with the same thoughtfulness that marked their professional collaboration. They moved carefully, respectful of each other's past wounds. For Marcus, loving again meant trusting life wouldn't take everything a second time. For Elena, it meant learning that vulnerability created strength, not weakness. 6 months later, during a weekend trip to the coast, Marcus led Elena to a cliffside bench overlooking the ocean at sunset. "I brought you here because this place reminds me of what you taught me," he said, taking her hands. "From here, you can see the whole horizon, all possibility, no limits." He knelt, holding a simple ring. "You found me when I thought I was invisible. You helped me rebuild when I thought everything was lost. Would you marry me, Elena?" Her eyes filled with tears as she joined him on her knees, bringing them face to face. "Yes," she whispered, 1,000 times. "Yes." Their wedding was small, held in the community garden Marcus had helped create behind the Nexus building. Lou from the diner catered, serving gourmet versions of his classic comfort food. Employees, from executives to maintenance staff, celebrated together as equals. 3 years later, Marcus and Elena's partnership has transformed more than just their lives. The Nexus Empathy Initiative now offers training programs to other companies. Marcus speaks at tech conferences about building human-centered businesses. Their story, of a jacket offered at a bus stop and the life-changing opportunity that followed, has become legend in business schools and corporate retreats. They've created a grant program for promising developers facing personal hardships, giving second chances to people who, like Marcus once was, need just one opportunity to rebuild their lives. So far, the program has helped 37 people return to tech careers after major setbacks. "It's strange to think," Marcus often says when interviewed about their success, "that if I'd kept my jacket that night, none of this would exist." In their home office hangs a framed, worn jacket, a daily reminder that the smallest choice can change everything. Remember how we started this story? With a simple question. What if the simple act of offering your jacket to a stranger could completely transform your life? The truth is, every act of kindness carries this potential. We never know who we're helping, how our actions might affect them, or what doors might open because we chose compassion over comfort. Marcus didn't help Elena that night because she was a CEO. He helped because she was cold and he had a jacket. He acted without expectation of return, from a place of genuine care. That's the power hiding in every moment of kindness, the potential to create waves of positive change far beyond what we can see. Your compassionate choice today, whether giving up your seat on the bus, helping a colleague who's struggling, or simply offering a kind word to someone having a difficult day, might be the catalyst that transforms a life, a company, or a community. Like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you want more stories about how small acts of kindness create extraordinary change. And tell us in the comments, what's one small act of kindness you're planning this week? Because you never know. Your jacket moment might be just around the corner.